Part 86. First Marriage Then Love, Mr. Mayor Please Be Kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 878. Second update. After returning to Joe's house, Chu Xia felt uneasy. After talking to Mrs. Joe and Mr. Zhou Lin Yangkai for a while, she went back to her room on the excuse that she was a little tired. She needed to straighten out her thoughts. As a result, just 5 minutes after she returned to the room, Lin Yangkai came over, holding a glass of milk in her hand. I put jujube nectar in it. After drinking it, I slept very soundly. Thank you, Mom. Chu Xia took it and sipped it. For a moment, she smiled at Lin Yangkai, who looked confused. Mom, just ask whatever you want. Do you still have to be so polite to me? Lin Yangkai smiled sheepishly. Have you noticed it? It seems like Mom is really not good at this. After a pause, she continued, you are in a bad mood when you come back. Mom and Grandma are very worried about you. Xia, did your sister-in-law say something that made you unhappy, or did something bad happen to you when you went to the health bureau? Can you tell Mom about it? No. Chu Xia shook her head. Mom, my sister-in-law is very good to me, and she even made so many delicious food to replenish my health. As for the health bureau, no one messes with me. My mood is a little low, which may be a normal symptom of pregnancy. In addition, Zhou Mikang will be away for so long, so I will inevitably feel a little uncomfortable. Don't worry, it will be fine after these 2 days. Really? Chu Xia nodded vigorously. I don't know what's going on with me. How could I deliberately hide something from my family? Even if it was for the sake of the baby, I wouldn't do that. Okay, Mom believes in you. Lin Yangkai rubbed her head lovingly. Then you go to bed early. Chu Xia nodded. Well, Mom should go to bed earlier. Remember, if anything happens, don't take it upon yourself. Tell Mom immediately. When they arrived at the door, Lin Yangkai turned around and warned her solemnly. Mom, you've known me for such a long time, so you should know something about me. Chu Xia grinned. Do you think I'm the kind of person who likes to take matters into my own hands? Lin Yangkai smiled and waved her hands and walked out the door. Early the next morning, Zhou Xiangping came over. As soon as he walked in, he glared at Chu Xia with dissatisfaction and said, Sister-in-law, have you forgotten me? You came back for so long without even notifying me. If I hadn't asked casually when I called you, I wouldn't have known you were back. Grandma and Mom were the same. I called you every day and they didn't even tell me. As he spoke, his eye circles became red. Do you think that if I get married, I will no longer be part of the Zhou family? Look at your little potential. Lin Yangkai looked at her little daughter funny. Aren't you embarrassed in front of so many people? Why didn't Grandma and I tell you? Don't you know? I have no problem now, no problem at all. Zhou Xiangping sniffed. You don't know how boring I am at home. As he spoke, he snorted at Liao Hui, who was following behind. It's all because of you. We agreed to come back the day before yesterday and postponed it until today. Otherwise, I would have seen my third sister-in-law a long time ago. Yes, it's all my fault. Liao Hui quickly admitted his mistake. I promise, next time you give me an order, I will leave my work and come back to see you as soon as possible. Go. Zhou Xiangping pushed him in disgust. You are so glib, who knows what you are thinking? Just when Zhou Jiping came downstairs, seeing her sister's domineering look, she couldn't help scolding her. Xiaoxi, Liao Hui has done a good enough job, can you be more sensible? Second sister. Zhou Xiangping made a bitter face. Am I your biological sister or is he your biological brother? Why do you always turn on him? Really, it's the elder sisters who vent their anger on their younger sisters, so it's better for you to always vent your anger on your younger sister. Cold water will give my brother-in-law vitality and vitality. I don't know what is good or bad. Zhou Jiping glared at her. After greeting the elders, he sat next to Chu Xia and said, "Brother and sister, I will go with you in the afternoon." Zhou Xiangping's eyes widened instantly. "Second sister, are you going to the capital as well?" "Yes." "What are you going for?" Zhou Xiangping continued to ask. Zhou Jiping rolled her eyes at her. "It's none of your business, just take good care of the baby." "Second sister." Zhou Xiangping smiled flatteringly. "Good second sister, please take me with you. You can bring me back when you come back, okay?" "No," Zhou Jiping refused without thinking. "Please save your worries. I almost scared you to death a few days ago, and you were still thinking about it here and there. Xiaosi, if you really want your baby to be well, just stay at home peacefully and stop worrying about it. If anything happens, wait until the baby is born. I'm really fine." Zhou Xiangping looked bitterly and asked Chu Xia for help. "Third sister-in-law, please take me with you. We can be companions." "What happened to you before?" Although Chu Xia was asking Zhou Xiangping, it was Zhou Jiping who was looking at her. Noticing her gaze, Zhou Xiangping looked aggrieved. "Third sister-in-law, you don't believe me?" "Yes, I don't believe you," Chu Xia admitted frankly and asked Zhou Jiping openly. "Second sister, I believe you." Zhou Xiangping. She had an episode of redness a few days ago and stayed in the hospital for half a month before going home. The doctor said she must not do any strenuous exercise in the past 3 months. Zhou Jiping glanced at her sister again before looking at Chu Xia. Asked, "Do you know why she saw red?" "How can you guess this?" Chu Xia shook her head. "This eldest sister actually ran out to jump rope. If possible, I really want to open her brain to see what kind of structure is capable of doing such a mentally retarded thing." Skipping rope, Chu Xia looked at Zhou Xiangping in confusion. "Can I ask why you do this?" She really couldn't understand this question. Although Zhou Xiangping had a bit of a temper, he was definitely not stupid. As long as he wasn't a fool, shouldn't do such a thing. "It's my fault." Liao Hui stood up first. "When I called her, she said she was bored and wanted me to go home on Sunday, but I was very busy those days, so what she said was a bit offensive. In fact, I regretted it after I said it, but when I called back, she had already ran out, and then the next thing happened." Zhou Jiping frowned and looked at Liao Hui and asked, "Are you telling the truth?" "Yes." Liao Hui lowered his head. "Second sister, it's all my fault. I really don't blame Xiaosi. Well, someone is really capable now." Zhou Jiping spread her hands and looked at Chu Xia. "When we asked, they said that the sun was shining and the mood was very good, so they wanted to do some activities, but the activity was too big, something went wrong." "It's okay if it's okay, it's okay if it's okay." Chu Xia quickly smoothed things over. "Fourth sister's doing this shows that she and her brother-in-law have a very good relationship. This is also good. Xiaosi, please don't do this again." Lin Yangkai glared at her little daughter with a serious face. "We thought something was wrong at first, but we thought it was okay anyway, so we didn't ask further questions. Now that we have come to this point, my mother emphasizes that no matter how big things happen in the future, you can't make fun of your body. It doesn't matter to you, but the baby won't be able to bear it. If your baby is really gone because of your impulsiveness, do you think you will regret it for the rest of your life? If you are lucky, or there will be more in the future, if you are unlucky and completely hurt your body, then you will really have no regrets in this life." "I know I was wrong." Zhou Xiangping drooped his head. "Actually, I knew I was wrong, and I made an agreement with Liao Hui. When I lose my temper again in the future, he will tolerate me and try to remind me not to be impulsive. You know you're wrong, but you still force your second sister and third sister-in-law to take you to the capital." Mrs. Zhou snorted coldly. "Xiao, I think you are really spoiled. Liao Hui, don't be so spoiled in the future." "She is really spoiled, Grandma," Liao Hui said with a wry smile. I can't do your request now. Even if I really don't spoil her anymore, I have to wait until the baby is born and has passed the confinement period. What? Josei Yangping interrupted him angrily, you mean you're going to bully me when I'm out of confinement, so what kind of baby will I have? Just get divorced. Who did you admit just now? Lin Yangkai looked at her little daughter speechlessly. In less than a minute, you have returned to your old ways. Do you think we dare to believe you? Josei Yangping shrank her neck and said nothing. How could Lin Yangkai let her go so easily, and asked, do you realize you were wrong? Yes, Josei Yangping nodded quickly and said, Mom, I didn't mean it, but I just didn't like it when Liao Hui said it about confinement, and I felt uncomfortable. He couldn't understand the hard work of being pregnant for 10 months. Besides, if it weren't for him, I wouldn't have to suffer this. So he should pamper me and pamper me. How could he treat grandma so politely? Really? Moreover, I am not unreasonable. He dotes on me. I know that he treats me well, so I will naturally correct my shortcomings and make myself more and more perfect. Have you realized your mistake? Lin Yangkai looked at her daughter speechlessly, really not knowing what to say. Mom, Josei is right, I should let her pamper her. In fact, I also know that she and my mother can't talk together, so I should be considerate of her. It was all my fault that caused her to accumulate so many negative emotions. I promise that I will pay attention to it in the future and never let her do such extreme actions again. Xiao Hui. Lin Yangkai smiled at him. Xiao Xi's bad temper has made you feel wronged. No grievance, no grievance. After watching it for a long time, Chu Xia finally understood that in name he was reprimanding Josei Yangping, but in fact he was trying to make amends for her. What he was waiting for was Liao Hui's admission of mistake and guarantee. Alas, she always thought that her mother-in-law and old lady were both truly straight-tempered, but this also reminded her not to look down on anyone at any time, otherwise, she would only suffer the consequences. Ours. First marriage then love. Mr. Mayor, please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 879. 3 updates. After beating Liao Hui, Josei Yangping dragged Chu Xia and Zhou Jiping to her room upstairs with satisfaction. As soon as she entered the room, she lay down on the bed and collapsed into a big body. She took a deep breath. Nowhere is as good as your own home. It would be very sad if Liao Hui heard what you said. Zhou Jiping looked at her funny. Josei, I can't tell, you are getting more and more dirty now. I have to be careful. Don't let me be sold by you one day, and I'll help you count the money stupidly. Second sister, you are superfluous. Josei Yangping sat up and glanced at her sister with dissatisfaction. I only play tricks on my husband's family, but not my mother's family. Ahem. Chu Xia coughed unnaturally. How about I hide out first and you guys chat for a while before I come in? Josei Yangping didn't react, so he looked at her with a puzzled look on his face. Why? You said you had tricks on Sunday, but you turned into an idiot again in the blink of an eye. Zhou Jiping looked at her sister speechlessly. You are here talking about using tricks on your in-laws, then our family is your third sister-in-law's in-laws, isn't it? Do you think she would feel uncomfortable hearing you say such words here? Oh. Josei Yangping patted her head in confusion. Sister-in-law, you are thinking too much. I really treat you as a family member, so I have no scruples in what I say. I know, but... Chu Xia spread her hands. My identity is indeed a bit embarrassing. Of course, to be fair, although they are both my husband's family and my husband's family are not the same, right? Third sister-in-law, I like what you say. Josei Yangping stroked her forehead and sighed with a depressed look on her face. I used to live in the same compound as the Liao family. Why didn't I find that Liao Hui's mother was so confusing? You can tell me that in the past, she always disliked me and always wanted to replace me. Now, she just treats me well and it makes my skin crawl all over. This is a good person, and you really need to have some restraint. If she is sincere, she will be comfortable with herself and the other party. If she is pretending, I don't know how she feels. Anyway, I really can't accept it. You don't know, when I hear her talking now, I feel cold in my heart. Sometimes I really want to hide and see what she looks like when she is carrying me. Josei. Joe Jipping interrupted her with a serious face. Your current state worries me too much. No matter whether your mother-in-law is pretending to be nice to you or really being nice to you, you shouldn't be like this. No matter what, it's Liao Hui's mother. How difficult would it be for Liao Hui to be caught in the middle with you like this? Moreover, their family only has a son like Liao Hui, so it is impossible for you to return to your parents' home for confinement. With your mentality, can you feel comfortable watching her during confinement? It's easy to say otherwise, but if you don't take good care of yourself during the confinement period and you get sick, it will last a lifetime. Then what should I do? Zhou Xiangping looked confused. I also want to accept her and get along well with her, but I get annoyed when I hear her voice. This is beyond my control. Hey, Zhou Jipping sighed, not knowing what to do. Brother-in-law, does he know what you think? Chu Xia asked. I don't know. Zhou Xiangping shook her head. After all, she is his biological mother. If I told him this, he would definitely be very disappointed. Under the special circumstances now, he might tolerate me, but what about in the future? I don't want him to blame me in the future because of this matter. If that happens, I might as well just divorce him without the child, but it's too late to say that now. The child is so old that I would be reluctant to let him go. Besides, it took a lot of effort to have a baby, so I don't dare to take that risk. It is definitely very painful for a woman not to be a mother. Yes, Zhou Jipping nodded, I have the most say on this. So, seeing you being so disrespectful makes me very angry. In comparison, Liao Hui is very tolerant of you, so don't go too far. His mother has such a personality, but it's not that she's not sincere, it's just, after thinking about it, she continued, it's just that she knew she had done something wrong before and wanted to make amends, so she acted in a way that made people feel fake. Don't just say her fault, reflect on yourself. If you treat her sincerely, she will definitely not be so guilty and her actions will not be so fake. For Liao Hui, you should let go of the barriers in your heart and get along well with his mother. Over time, maybe you will get closer naturally. Sister, let me try. Zhou Xiangping looked at her sister apologetically. I always ask my sister to comfort me with her own sad things. What I, a sister, do is really unqualified. It's good to know. Zhou Jipping said with a smile. However, I am quite satisfied with the current state of Yu Minghui and I because of the previous commotion, his family did not dare to treat me anymore. What are you asking for? From the time we got married to now, we have truly lived a small life that belongs to both of us. This feeling is so great. Sister, you deliberately made me jealous. Zhou Xiangping rolled her eyes at her. Thankfully, I felt guilty just now, sister. Now, I don't feel any guilt at all anymore. Brother and sister, you are a bit too quiet. Zhou Jipping looked at Chu Xia and looked at her with a puzzled expression. Are you feeling unwell, or are you feeling uncomfortable because Xiaomi left? After a moment's hesitation, Chu Xia tentatively said, I have something to ask you. I've finished asking the question, and you have to think carefully before answering me, okay? Okay. Third sister-in-law, stop being so secretive. The answers of the two sisters fully reflected the difference in their personalities. Chu Xia smiled at them and said, suppose someone killed our relatives, and the murderer was the elder brother. Neither the younger brother nor the parents knew about it, but they lived their lives after being implicated. It's very painful. What will you do when one day you find out that one of your sisters has fallen in love with your brother? I don't accept it. Zhou Xiangping gave the answer without thinking. For me, Seeing that brother will bring me into painful memories. If my sister really likes him, I have only one choice. The first way is to break away from her family relationship. In principle, I agree with Josei's statement, but... After a pause, Jo Jipping said, but I will let myself truly understand the situation before making a decision. After all, my brother is innocent. Third sister-in-law, you won't ask this for no reason. Jo Xiangping looked at Chu Xia hesitantly, don't tell me that the person who fell in love with my brother is Su Shuxian. Well, let her guess right. Chu Xia looked at her with her mouth open and didn't say a word for a long time. The hit rate was so high, she was really shocked. The only unmarried girl who is considered a relative in our family is Su Shuxian. With the character of the third sister-in-law, she will not ask such questions for no reason. As long as she thinks about it, the answer will come out, Jo Xiangping said. About her super high hit rate explained. Chu Xia sighed and smiled bitterly, if I knew it was so easy to guess, I wouldn't have said anything. However, now that I have said it, there is nothing to hide. She explained the details to the two sisters. Originally, she didn't want to care about it, but when she left Su's house, Su Yan's words touched her greatly, so she still wanted to do her part. I don't know whether I should tell my family or Zhou Mikang about this matter. Rationally, I think I should not get involved. Emotionally, I don't allow myself to pretend to be confused. Chu Xia sighed again and looked at the two sisters. Second sister, fourth sister, you two should help me think about it. Anyway, my sister-in-law means that I am not allowed to tell any of you. She can handle this matter by herself. But I'm worried that if something happens to Shuxian, I will really feel guilty for the rest of my life. There is strength in numbers, so let's think about what should be the best way to do this. Third sister-in-law. Jo Xiangping looked at Chu Xia seriously, let me tell you this matter can be over for us, but for third brother, it will never be over. The third brother and Xiao Qi have the best relationship. The huge change in the third brother's character is because of Xiao Qi. If he knows that his cousin now likes the enemy's brother, do you think he can accept it? Yes, that brother is innocent, but there is no way, he is a living fossil, he is dazzling in front of our eyes just to remind us that such a thing happened. If the third sister-in-law begs the third brother, I believe that the third brother will agree. However, I also believe that the third brother will definitely not feel comfortable. Therefore, how the third sister-in-law should choose, let's weigh it carefully. Although Xiaoxi is unreliable most of the time, the analysis of this matter still makes sense. The relationship between Xiaomi and Xiaoqi is much deeper than that of us. On the surface, he doesn't mind, but in his heart. Jo Jipping let out a long sigh, I'm really not sure. This multiple choice question was so easy that Chu Xia made up her mind in an instant. In the afternoon, Jo Jipping accompanied Chu Xia back to the capital. The driver was of course Wang Zhongliang. He was now Chu Xia's full-time driver and bodyguard. He would accompany Chu Xia wherever she went. Mr. Zhao's body recovered very well. When he heard the sound of the car, he came out with a cane. When he saw Chu Xia, he smiled so hard that he couldn't see his eyes. I guess it's you who's back. Grandpa, we haven't seen each other for only 2 days, but you've made progress again. Chu Xia greeted the old man like a gust of wind, hugged his arm and said coquettishly, according to your progress, you will be able to throw away the crutches and move around freely in another month. Mr. Zhao chuckled and said, lend me some good words from my granddaughter. I'm looking forward to that day. Hello, Grandpa Zhao. Jo Jipping greeted him politely after the grandfather and grandson had been together for a while. You are in really good condition now. She said this after visiting the old man when he was hospitalized. Rs. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor, please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan Nuan. Chapter 880. 1 Update. 2 days later at noon, Chu Xia met Zhou Jiping on her way home. Seeing her tired and depressed expression, she took 2 steps to catch up with her and looked at her worriedly. Second sister, what happened? Are you pregnant? Don't hold it in like this all the time. At least tell me openly and let me have an idea. Seeing you like this makes me really worried. Zhou Jiping glanced at Li Xinlai, who was following silently, and said, It's nothing, I'm just a little tired. Just go home and rest. Chu Xia, I just remembered that I forgot a book in the classroom. I ask Sister Zhou to accompany you home. I will come to find you early tomorrow morning. Before Chu Xia could say anything, Li Xinlai had already run away quickly, and Zhou Jiping apologized. He looked at Chu Xia and said, Your classmate misunderstood. Please explain to her later. I didn't mean it. Some words are really hard to say. Second sister, it's okay. Chu Xia smiled, because they were worried that I would not be safe alone. They arranged for someone to accompany me home every day. Xinlai is not petty. She did leave just to make things convenient for me and my second sister. However, she will definitely not be angry. I can guarantee this. Zhou Jiping nodded and said nothing else. It was obvious that she was really not in the mood. Old Dr. Qi was sitting at the newspaper and studying a medical record. Chu Xia gently knocked on the door. The old doctor raised his head and saw that it was her. A smile unconsciously appeared on the corner of his lips, but his face was grim. It's not okay you go to school, why are you here? I miss you. Chu Xia leaned over with a playful smile, Mr. Qi. My grandpa also misses you very much, but he can't come here every day. Let me greet you on his behalf. Yes, the old man nodded, I got it. Then he waved to her. Okay, you can go. I'm still busy and I don't have time to talk nonsense with you here. Mr. Qi. Chu Xia smiled coquettishly, actually, I came to see you for something. Well, if you get angry, beat me up, but please help me once. Okay. Say. Mr. Qi raised his head and looked at her expressionlessly. Holding back her guilty conscience, Chu Xia said, My eldest aunt never had a baby after she got married. Then she finally got pregnant and had a miscarriage. Originally, the doctor said that as long as she rested for a year, she would be fine. But some time ago, her menstruation suddenly stopped. I also saw an expert in City A and took a lot of medicine, but there was little improvement. My eldest aunt's friend introduced her to the capital to find Dr. Sun. Dr. Shuosun is an expert in gynecology. However, my eldest aunt went there several times. I didn't even see Dr. Sun, and I found out later. It just so happened that on the day my eldest aunt came over, Dr. Sun. Dr. Qi interrupted her, he's in a coma due to cerebral hemorrhage. Yes, Chu Xia nodded. So, I would like to ask you to help me look at my eldest aunt. She has a very good heart, a very good personality, treats others very well, and is very kind. Why are you so wordy? Dr. Qi glared at her, don't you know I'm very busy? Ah, after being stunned for a moment, Chu Xia understood and hurriedly ran out, waving to Zhou Jiping who was waiting outside, Second sister, come in quickly, come in quickly. Both of you have sugar-coated haws on your mind, right? Dr. Qi looked speechlessly at the 2 sisters-in-law who ran in happily. Lin Chuxia, how did you know me? Have you forgotten? Ah. What? Dr. Qi looked at her indifferently, if it weren't for the Zhou family, would you know me? Yes. Chu Xia nodded repeatedly, second sister and I are really confused. As he spoke, he pulled Zhou Jiping, who was still in a daze, second sister, sit down quickly and let Mr. Qi take a look. Oh. Zhou Jiping responded several times, quickly put her arms on the table, and smiled flatteringly at Mr. Chi. "Mr. Chi, please excuse me." "Yeah," Mr. Chi responded and put his hand on Ping's wrist. For a moment, he motioned for her to switch to the other arm, then took it back and said calmly, "Don't think so much in the future. I haven't recovered well in the first place. I'll just stop thinking about it. If there are too many, there will naturally be problems." He took out a prescription and wrote a full sheet and handed it to her. "First grab 10, and then come and take a look after eating." "Thank you." Zhou Jiping quickly thanked her. Although she was full of questions, she didn't dare to say anything at the moment. Mr. Chi lowered his head and stopped talking to the two of them. Since the eviction order was issued, Chu Xia and Zhou Jiping couldn't spend any more time here, so they thanked them and went to the pharmacy to get medicine together. After leaving the hospital gate, Zhou Jiping couldn't help but look back and looked at Chu Xia. "Mr. Chi looks like a different person. It's really strange." Chu Xia nodded in agreement. "Yes, although he is still a little cold towards people, it is no longer the feeling of rejecting people thousands of miles away. It is still good. When I first met him, his every sentence was thorny. It makes me always on tenterhooks. It seems that what a person needs to open up his heart is a little opportunity." For so many years, Mr. Chi has been insisting on his own persistence. No one can do anything about him. Unexpectedly, Zhou Jiping looked at Chu Xia up and down, with a look on her face. "Admired, sister-in-law, I am really convinced by you now. To be honest, it's not that I haven't thought about looking for Mr. Chi, but I gave it up as soon as the thought came to my mind. I felt that although he made an exception for you once, it didn't mean that he would make exceptions for you in the future. His stubbornness can't be compared to Xiaomi's. If there was really no other way, I would never agree to come to see Mr. Chi. When I came, I was fully prepared to be disappointed. Unexpectedly, it was really, I didn't expect that. Hey, if you don't experience it yourself, you may not be able to understand it. Second sister, look at how cautious I was just now. In fact, I have the same idea as you. I thought maybe I was just lucky last time. Even if I was kicked out this time, I had to give it a try. But I didn't expect that it was completely different from what I imagined. However, this result is the best. Mr. Chi's expertise in traditional Chinese medicine is generally recognized by everyone. For this problem, traditional Chinese medicine is better than Western medicine. The second sister is staying here during this period. After finishing these 10 pairs, I will accompany the second sister for a follow-up consultation. It is best to ask Mr. Chi to prescribe some nourishing medicine for the second sister and try to get the second sister and her brother-in-law to do it earlier. Mom and Dad. Zhou Jiping only hesitated before agreeing. She didn't even tell her husband the purpose of coming here. Now that she had such a good result, there was no need for her to hide it from everyone anymore. After Mrs. Zhou and Lin Yangkai learned about Zhou Jiping's physical condition, they felt distressed and angry. They scolded her severely and thought she would not tell her family anything. As for Yu Mingtao, when he heard that his wife had found a good cure, he was almost too happy. How could he be angry that his wife had lied to him? He kept telling his wife to rest peacefully and come to the capital to see her when he was free. After hanging up the phone, Zhou Jiping let out a long sigh of relief. When she saw Chu Xia looking at her with a look of confusion, she smiled sheepishly. "I didn't say anything because I was afraid that everyone would be worried. It wasn't intentional." "I know." After a moment's hesitation, Chu Xia said, "What's bothering my second sister to make her wear out her body to this extent? If it's convenient, just tell me, okay? What's wrong with this?" Zhou Jiping sighed, and seeing Zhao Yulan and Lin Baohe getting up to go back to the room, she quickly said, "Uncle Lin, Aunt Zhao, don't leave, I have nothing to hide from others." Hearing what she said, Mr. Zhao and Mrs. Zhao, who had been a little slow to get up, sat back down. Wan Lao put down his book and sat over, Xiaoji, we are all a family. If it's not about sex, let's talk about it. I feel very happy. Yes, yes. Zhou Jiping nodded quickly. I thought so too. I didn't say it originally, and it wasn't because I didn't want to tell everyone. It was just that there were happy events happening one after another at home, and I didn't want to spoil everyone's life by saying something annoying. Feeling. Didn't Yu Mingtao and I spend the New Year at my parents' house? Yu Mingxia went there several times and asked us to go back to Yu's house for the New Year, but Yu Mingtao never agreed. The Yu family was naturally unhappy, but they were not surprised. Yu Mingtao put all the blame on me. In their view, as the daughter-in-law of the Yu family, I should be of the same mind as the Yu family. It would be unfilial to abduct Yu Mingtao to my parents' house during the Chinese New Year. Originally, I didn't particularly care about my family's attitude, but they went too far. My mother-in-law actually went to my workplace to make trouble. She sat down and started criticizing me. People in my workplace looked at me very strangely. They didn't know her character, but they just felt that the quarrel between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law couldn't be the fault of one party. Coupled with the Zhou family's family situation, it was natural that everyone believed my mother-in-law's words and felt that I had become someone else's daughter-in-law, but instead of being filial to my parents-in-law, I only cared about living a comfortable life for myself. I couldn't explain this even if I wanted to. I always kept it in my heart, which inevitably made me feel bad. Then my sister-in-law didn't go well at work, so she came to me to complain. With my mother-in-law's previous incident as a background, everyone naturally took my sister-in-law's words seriously and felt that I was very selfish. I knew I had the ability to help my sister-in-law, but deliberately ignored her. Later, I got to the point where people were pointing at me everywhere I went, but unfortunately they didn't say it to my face. As long as I looked over, they would immediately put on a smile and pretend that nothing was wrong. But I'm not blind, and my little movements were seen by me, so how could I feel comfortable? I also really want to control my emotions, but in that kind of environment every day, I really can't control it. Later, my mood became worse and worse. I started to feel nauseous as soon as I ate the food in my mouth, and my body became like this. She spread her hands and said, "Actually, I know the reason, but Western medicine doesn't take these into account when prescribing, so I haven't seen any improvement after treatment for a long time." To be continued. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan Nuan. Chapter 881. Second update. Does brother-in-law know? Chu Xia's first reaction was to ask Yu Mingtao if he knew about Zhou Jiping's condition. However, as soon as she said the words, she realized that her question was a bit unnecessary. If Yu Mingtao knew the reason, how could he let it happen? Is the family so noisy? As expected, Zhou Jiping's answer was exactly what Chu Xia was thinking. She felt that her husband had done enough for her, so she felt that as long as she could bear it, it would be better not to let her husband worry about it. Therefore, some things in a person's bones are difficult to change. Even if she was heartbroken by the Yu family, even if she made up her mind to divorce Yu Mingtao at that time, when something happened again, her first thought would be the reaction is still to endure and hide. Chu Xia looked at her speechlessly, really not knowing what to say. Zhao Yulan understood this very well, so she hugged Zhou Jiping's shoulders comfortingly and sighed, "Fortunately, it's all settled now. You kid is so kind-hearted. Mingtao married you with all his life's hard work, what a blessing." Lin Bao he frowned and said nothing. Obviously, she did not agree with his wife's statement. Of course, he understood why his wife thought so, because she had carried it like this before. However, although he is honest, he cares very much about his wife and daughter. As long as his mother and daughter are bullied, he will definitely feel it and will definitely settle the score with the person who bullied his wife and daughter. He felt that after a man married a wife and had children, he should protect them and treat him no matter how he treated them. Anyway, as long as he treated his wife and children badly, he would never tolerate it. Now he is fortunate that his daughter does not have such a character. Of course, even if his daughter does, the son-in-law's character will not make his daughter angry. Having lived in the Joe family for so long, he has a general understanding of the personalities of his daughter's two sisters-in-law, and they are sincerely good to his daughter. Therefore, he has a good impression of them and naturally does not want them to be harmed. However, as a man, it was still not convenient for him to say some things. After a moment of hesitation, he looked at his daughter. Feeling her father's gaze, Chusia looked over, then understood what he meant, nodded, and looked at Jo Jipping. Second sister, I admire your kindness very much. My mother is also a very kind person. My grandparents and uncles used to be quite bullying. My mother tolerated them every time. But because we are so close and people in the village like to make trouble, my father will soon know. Every time my father finds out, the first thing he does is to find a way for my mother. My grandparents are such arrogant people, and they usually bully my father, but at that time. Just listen in silence. I say this because I hope the second sister can give the second brother-in-law this opportunity. The second brother-in-law is busy with work. If you don't tell him, he may not realize it at all. But what do you think he would feel if one day he knew that you had been bullied so much by your family and that your body was in such a state? A man who can't even protect his wife will definitely not be happy. Jo Jipping hesitated. He has not gone home to celebrate the new year because of me. Although he didn't say it, I could feel that he was thinking about the Yu family in his heart. If the dispute between the Yu family and me becomes even more tense, how uncomfortable will he feel? In any case, they were the relatives who gave birth to him and raised him, which was a bit different from Uncle Lin. Forget it, I've said everything that needs to be said. Second sister, let's make up her own mind. Chusia waved her hands in annoyance. I'm tired. I'm going back to my room to rest. You guys can chat. Brother and sister. Jo Jipping looked at her in a panic. I know you are doing it for my own good, but I have such an unsatisfactory character. Don't be angry with me, okay? I'm not angry. Biting her lip, Chusia still said, it's not your fault. It's because of our different personalities that we have such differences. To be honest, I just see you being bullied and always tolerate it, so feel uncomfortable. It's not that I blame you, it's just. After a pause, she sighed, it's probably because of my personality. I'm just a straight-laced donkey. Second sister, don't take it to heart. Brother and sister. Jo Jipping moved to sit next to Chusia and held her hand. You are straightforward and sincere to people who are really good to you. I also want to be like you, but I can't do it all at once. It is easy to think about things here and there. To put it bluntly, I am the kind of person who cares very much about what others think. Actually, if you think about it, what will happen to my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law if others believe them? People who really have a good relationship with me still interact with me, but they can only feel jealous and wish that I was unlucky enough to do something behind my back. What should I care about? You see, I understand the truth, but I just can't help but care about it, and it breaks my body. Therefore, some of the shortcomings in my character are also like this. It's not that I don't want to change, but for the time being, I can't do it. Look at how happy Josei is living so heartlessly. I really want to be like her, but I can't do it. Chusia interrupted her helplessly. Second sister, I understand what you mean. You don't need to explain it to me. As long as you have this awareness yourself and are willing to adjust. When you have physical problems and you suffer, your family members who truly love you will feel as uncomfortable as you. For them, the second sister must make herself better. I will. Jo Jipping's eyes were filled with smile. I have never been in such a good mood as I am today. It turns out that you have to talk about your worries to really relieve stress. After taking the medicine for only 5 days, Jo Jipping's bleeding stopped. On the 6th day, which happened to be Sunday, Yu Mingtao rushed over and saw that his wife's face was obviously rosy. He rubbed his hands and mouth in excitement. He kept mumbling, it's great, this time is great. Then he bowed to the elders to express his thanks. There is still me, Chu Xia said slowly. Brother and sister, thank you, thank you. Say less thank you, and pay more attention to the second sister. Chu Xia looked at him calmly. The second sister is afraid of embarrassing you, so she won't tell you anything, but the second brother-in-law doesn't feel it at all, isn't it wrong? Yes, it was my fault. Yu Mingtao quickly admitted his mistake. I was too careless. I promise that I will never let something like this happen again. Don't say it to me, say it to the second sister. Xiaji. Jo Jipping pushed him. Okay, as long as you know it, it's okay. Besides, no matter how much you talk, it's useless. I'll see your actual actions in the future. Of course, I am also responsible for what happened this time, and I should tell you, otherwise it wouldn't be so serious. Let's both make changes and let this be over this time, okay? Okay. Chu Xia curled her lips secretly. This sister-in-law is really helpless. Well, maybe her requirements are a little too high. Most women of this era think so. After staying for only one night, Yu Mingtao left. The next day, Jo Jipping received a call from Mrs. Jo, saying that Yu Mingxia went to Jo's house crying to find her. It seemed that she had been greatly wronged. The second brother-in-law must have shown off his power, Chu Xia said. Yeah, Jo Jipping nodded and smiled. I know you still think I'm worthless, but this is the way Yu Mingtao and I get along. In fact, as long as he knows that I am wronged, he will help me as soon as possible. I took it out. I also hid it because I was worried that he was too busy at work and didn't want to bother him. We both thought it sounded good, but in fact we were thinking about each other. Second sister, I know that second brother-in-law is good to you, so you don't need to explain to me. Chu Xia looked at her helplessly. You have to explain like this whenever you talk to me these days. Are you tired? Jo Jipping's face turned red and she looked embarrassed. Okay, I won't say anything anymore. That's not what I meant. Sighing, Chu Xia smiled at her. Second sister, I'm sorry, I admit that I have been in a bad mood during this period, which has caused you to suffer. Don't worry, Xiaomi will be fine. Jo Jipping sat next to her and held her shoulders. He went on so many dangerous missions before and was fine, and he will definitely be fine this time. All you have to do is eat well and drink well to take good care of yourself. It would be best if the baby can come back before the baby is born. Even if he cannot come back, then you must let him see a healthy you and a healthy body as soon as he comes back. Baby. Yeah, Chu Xia took a long breath. Maybe I'm too idle, so I always think randomly. After thinking about it, she looked at Jo Jipping. I want to be my teacher, Mr. Chi, do you agree? After hesitating for a while, Jo Jipping said, that's good, but after so many years, I haven't heard of Mr. Chi taking on a disciple, and he didn't even teach his own daughter. I know he treats you a little differently, but after all, this is nothing. You should be mentally prepared and don't be disappointed if he doesn't accept you. I know, I just admire his skills. Anyway, I only have 5 classes a day at most. There are 2 afternoons when I have no classes. I can go to him to study. I can use my spare time to digest the learning knowledge. In this way, when I give birth to the baby, I can spend time at home by myself without getting too bored. Chu Xia smiled sheepishly. I was very clear when I advised you, and it's the same when it's my turn. This makes me happy. It shows that you are sincere to Xiaomi. Jo Jipping smiled happily. I always looked at you indifferently in the past. Josei and I were afraid that one day you would get tired of Xiaomi's bad temper and throw us away. He dumped it. She knew that her eldest sister was joking, but words like this still gave Chuxia some comfort. This meant that her eldest sister-in-law and sister-in-law's recognition of her was absolutely from the heart. It wasn't until half a month later that Chuxia received a call from Zhou Mikang. The teacher, Tongzi, found an opportunity to secretly call her while taking a break. Ours. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan Nuan. Chapter 882. Third update. Listening to the obviously tired voice on the other end of the phone, Chuxia sighed secretly. It was better not to tell him about Su Shuxian's affairs. He was already tired and annoyed enough. At this time, she was determined not to cause any more trouble for him. Even if Su Shuxian hates her for this, it doesn't matter. During these days of marching, Zhou Mikang was thinking about his little wife all the time. When they parted, he could clearly see the sadness hidden under her smile. How could he feel relieved? After finally waiting for a rest, he immediately ran to the operator's room to call his wife to inquire about her physical condition. In fact, he knew very well that his wife was sensible. When he asked, she must be reporting good news rather than bad news. However, he was an all-round leader and could tell her physical condition just from her voice. People would not hide these things over the phone as a rule. Sure enough, after only speaking a few words to his young wife, he felt that she was not in a good mood, and said, "Are you worried about me, or have you encountered something troublesome recently? I'm pressed for time, so don't quarrel with me. Be honest." Early summer. Feeling that his tone was not gentle enough, the teacher Tongzi quickly slowed down his tone. "Xia, I came here secretly to make a call, so I am inevitably a little anxious. I am really worried about you. Don't tell me that nothing is wrong. I can tell it from your voice and tone. Don't deny it. This is my strength, so what you have to do is tell me the truth, so that I can truly feel at ease." Although he was shocked by the sharpness of his teacher, Zhuangzi, Chuxia also clearly realized that the longer it took, the longer it took. Master Tongzi became more suspicious and thought about it for a while. She found the reason: the second sister is not in good health and is popular with the Yu family. So I am very angry. You also know the second sister's character. She is so kind and always considers others. So, although she has recovered now, I am still a little angry. Only this. What else do you want? Chuxia snorted dissatisfiedly. Second sister has always been very kind to me. Isn't it right for me to feel sorry for her? Besides, if you were here, you would definitely go to Yu Mingtao to settle the score. So serious, Zhou Mikang's voice became obviously serious. Just tell me what happened. Even though I'm not there, you can still find someone to handle it. Hey, we can't make a big fuss, then we can't help the second sister's sincerity towards the second brother-in-law. Chuxia quickly advised, you'd better stop getting involved. The second sister has stopped arguing. Why don't you try again? Aren't you sincerely trying to break up the couple by mixing things up blindly? Besides, it's not that you don't know my character, you just can't stand the grievance. She also couldn't bear to see her relatives being wronged. The second sister also said that this was the way she and her second brother-in-law got along. They've all adapted to that. Otherwise, just think that I am making a fuss out of a molehill. What are you afraid of? What am I afraid of? Chuxia snorted guiltily. What do I have to be afraid of? I just don't want you to mess up the second sister's plan. I have already promised the second sister, and she won't let me tell you. If she knows that I don't mean what I say, will she still believe me in the future? Okay, take good care of yourself. If anything happens, don't bear it alone. Call your mother and grandparents as soon as possible. If it's an urgent matter, call the Lin family. They are close. At this time, don't stick to formalities, use whomever is convenient, and I will pay back the favors you owe me when I get back. Just make yourself safe and happy, and don't think about anything else. You have to remember that compared to the safety and health of you and your babies, everything else is insignificant. This is also the biggest motivation to support my struggle. Therefore, you should understand what to do, right? I understand, you have to take good care of yourself, and give me a call when it's convenient. As long as I hear your voice, I will feel at ease. Real. The voice on the other end of the phone was obviously smiling. It was obvious that the teacher, Tongzi, was pleased by his wife's words. If it is normal. Even if she thought so, Chuxia would not say it out loud, but under the special circumstances now, she would bite the bullet and continue to be nauseous. Of course it's true. When did I ever lie to you? Take care and wait for me. Before Chuxia could react, the teacher, Zhuangzi, had already hung up the phone and was stunned for a while holding the phone. Chuxia smiled to herself. Could it be that the man was moved to tears? No, she must ask the teacher next time when he calls again. As long as she thinks of such a tough teacher and sheds tears, she feels so happy. Do you want to be my apprentice? Mr. Chi looked at Chuxiazi, who was sitting opposite him and looking at him eagerly, with a speechless expression on his face. Do you not know your last name? My surname is Lin. Chuxia looked at him seriously. Mr. Chi, I came to you after careful consideration. Your medical skills are so superb. It would be a pity if there were no descendants, right? Who said I have no descendants? Mr. Chi glanced at her lightly. I don't like to think I'm smart. Okay, don't come to me again, go back. Chuxia said anxiously. Mr. Chi, I am not trying to be smart. I heard that you have been confiscating apprentices, so I said that. I really want to be a useful person, so I came to you shamelessly. I promise you that I will be very serious, hardworking, and I will never embarrass you. Even when I have a baby, I will study hard. The corner of Mr. Chi's mouth twitched uncontrollably. This was the first time he heard that someone had to study hard when giving birth to a baby. He was too lazy to say anything. He waved his hand and lowered his head to do his own business. If you don't agree, I will come to you every day. Chuxia also made up her mind. She was pregnant now, and she didn't believe that Mr. Chi would be violent to her. Anyway, if he didn't agree, she would just sit here and watch. See who is more patient. Well, I guess there is no possibility that she is more patient than Mr. Chi. To be more precise, let's see if her persistence can impress Mr. Chi. Before coming, she consulted Mr. Yuan's opinion. Mr. Yuan expressed great surprise that she could make Mr. Chi break his precepts, and fully supported her in becoming Mr. Chi's disciple. Mr. Yuan said that his main focus was on Western medicine. If Chuxia could become a disciple of Mr. Chi, he would. If you are a teacher, it is very possible to develop into a master-level doctor with superb medical skills in the future. Chuxia did this not for fame. She sincerely hoped that she could be good at her job, and most importantly, she hoped that she could be sure to keep her family healthy. Half an hour later, Mr. Chi put down his pen, stood up and walked out. After hesitating for a moment, Chuxia got up and followed. Teacher, where are you going? If it's an errand, I'll help. Go to the bathroom. Early summer. Seeing someone wiltingly returning to the office, Mr. Chi's mouth curled up unconsciously, but the next moment, he snorted coldly, You want to be my apprentice, do you think it's that easy? In the next few days, as long as nothing happened, Chuxia would go to Mr. Chi's office and stay there. Fortunately, Mr. Chi didn't kick her out, but even so, she quickly became famous in the hospital. Later, when doctors and nurses met her, they would take the initiative to say hello. Those who didn't know it thought she was also a member of the hospital. The elders were worried about Chusea's persistence at first, but later seeing how persistent she was, they didn't stop her. Anyway, she was followed by a bodyguard and driver every day when she went out, so there was nothing to worry about. Moreover, the person she went to see was so skilled in medicine that even if something happened, it wouldn't really happen. So, later on, when she didn't have classes, Zhao Yulan would take the initiative to prepare things for her. A bag for travel, embarrassing. Just like that, more than a month passed in the blink of an eye. The weather in May was already full of warmth. After changing into a singlet, the figure of a pregnant woman in early summer could be seen slightly. At first, some students only thought that she had a bad figure, but later they found that the problem was not serious. Correct. As a result, there were suddenly a lot of rumors in the school, but none of them were good anyway. However, during this period of early summer, apart from attending classes, she was either in Mr. Yuan's insurance room or in Mr. Chi's office. She had no idea that the discussion about her in the school had reached a fever pitch. Later, the members of the small group couldn't stand it anymore and stopped her when she was about to leave in a hurry. During this period, she was protected by Wang Zhongliang. She no longer needed the escort of the little sisters. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been so difficult to catch her. Grasp. Is something wrong? Chu Xia looked at a few people in confusion. Why are everyone's faces so serious? Is someone bullying you? Tell me, let Uncle Wang vent your anger. Are you still in the mood to joke? Lin Mengran stared at her speechlessly. Do you know that the school is about to explode, saying that you got pregnant out of wedlock and your morals are corrupt? No matter how we explain it to others, do not believe. I said, should you ask your husband's family to come forward and deal with this matter? Even if you don't care, it's always bad to spread rumors like this, and we feel angry for you. Is this the case for me? Chu Xia scratched her head in confusion. There are so many married people in the school, and I also found several pregnant women. Why can I tolerate them but not me? Are you the same as other people? Lin Mengran couldn't help but roll her eyes. How old are you and how old are other people? And their husbands come to deliver things every month. Oh, I really didn't pay attention to this. Chu Xia smiled sheepishly. During this period, all she could think about was wanting to become Mr. Chi's student. In other aspects, it was inevitable that she would turn a little slower, otherwise, I wouldn't have asked such a mentally retarded question, and I would inevitably be despised by my friends. To be continued. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 883. Treason? If I don't follow sir, it may be treason, Barry replied with a slight smile. Goodbye, everyone. After saying that, Kalakana once again fled without a trace as when she came. Then when you said you wanted to follow me just now, I'm afraid you just wanted to return to Kunpeng safely. Jin Liwen felt a little uncomfortable when he remembered what Columbus said just now about his willingness to follow him. Columbus was already sweating after reading the above content. First of all, the employment price shocked him. When he originally received the information about the price of 5 million gold coins, he thought it was a joke. Only now did I know it was true. Then he looked at the additional terms. When he saw the enemy's prince captured alive, his eyes almost fell out. Although he knew that Jin Liwen was very powerful, it was too exaggerated to capture an enemy prince. In fact, it is normal for him to have such thoughts. Although he has seen Jin Liwen and those biochemical infantry take action, he did not look at the opponents. They were all bandits. They have not used half of their skills to deal with them. If let him see the biochemical infantry against the flow people, and I'm afraid he won't think so. At that time, The Iron Wings on the northern border of the Kunpeng Empire rebelled. The reason for their rebellion was the Scroll of Space. After the rebellion broke out, Columbus's great-grandfather, Marshal Columbus, asked for orders to go to quell the rebellion. Although this time he clearly went to quell the rebellion, in fact, he went secretly to repay his kindness. He knew that if he sent others to go, then the iron-winged people will face ruthless massacre. Mr. Barry, no, he should be called General Columbus. Karakana suddenly appeared out of nowhere and said a series of words to Barry that Jin Liwen didn't understand. Then she glanced at Barry and saw there was no change in her expression now, and she added, "Long time no see, General Columbus." As soon as Jin Liwen entered the door, he saw Elise, Lei and the rescued Barry sitting in the living room chatting leisurely, and Barry even danced and introduced his experience of being kidnapped, as if he had just been kidnapped. Go on an adventure in general. That's not the case. Your Excellency did save the villain twice, and I am a person who knows how to repay kindness, so what I just said is true. Columbus replied with a serious face. In his heart, what he said to Jin Liwen just now truly came from his heart. I'm ashamed of myself, Columbus said helplessly. For safety reasons, Jin Liwen asked Milas to take Farhan back to his room, and asked Milas to stay and take care of him tonight, while Jin Liwen went back to his room. When Jin Liwen saw this, he smiled slightly, but his expression suddenly changed. This was only because he was relieved to have more helpers at first. After all, more people can do more work, but he suddenly realized another problem. This was that he had just accepted the Kunpeng Empire's employment to help it attack Felimba. The kingdom of Mo, and the Barry in front of him is a businessman from the kingdom of Felimbamo, so if he is allowed to follow him, he will betray his country. Maybe Barry will not follow him. When Barry heard this, he thought to himself that you are really relaxed, but he said, indeed, this is nothing to adults. What's the stuff? Jin Liwen thought about it carefully and felt that there was nothing to prepare, so he said, there's not much, just prepare some food. There should be some time left, General Columbus. Don't worry. You can settle down your men first, and then join us on the road the next day. Jin Liwen knew that Columbus was worried about not having enough time, but now he nor do I want to explain the way to Tirana. You are stealing the enemy's information in the name of doing business, Elise said. Oh, sir, you are also helping Miss Karakana regain the scroll of space. Columbus was surprised when he heard Karakana's words. Columbus and Kalakana looked at each other after hearing Jin Liwen's words, and finally Columbus told the reason. Oh, it's rare that the emperor of your country, Columbus, didn't steal something from their iron-winged people. Now you tell me that your two families are family friends. Just now, Karakana came out to expose Columbus's identity, and then defended him. I really don't understand the relationship between you. Jin Liwen found it difficult to understand the relationship between the two. After arriving in the territory of the Iron Wings, Columbo's great-grandfather, Marshal Columbus, was not in a hurry to suppress it. Instead, he went directly to the leader of the Iron Wings at the time, Canlas, and explained to him the current situation, and vowed to one day hand over the scroll of space with both hands, so as to repay the kindness of the past. Jin Liwen sighed slightly, feeling that sooner or later he would know this, so why not say it now and see how Barry would react. So he calmed down and said, Barry, do you know what I'm going to do next? Miss Karakana, it seems you haven't read it. Jin Liwen handed the document to Karakana aside, and then said, the conditions are indeed a bit harsh, but it's not a big problem. Don't worry, sir. I will get it done tomorrow. Columbus also had an estimate of the weight. Although he knew that 300 people would be dispatched this time, except for Jin Liwen and the others, the rest were those he had no idea about. I have never seen any biochemical infantry eating, so the portion for 6 or 7 people is enough. You can't blame them, it's all because their emperor was too greedy. After the old Marshal Columbus calmed down the incident, As soon as he returned to the capital, he made a speech to Rakafei and persuaded him to return the scroll of space, but he was met with failure. Even though he sternly refused, Marshal Colomb did not give up and raised the matter whenever he had the opportunity. In the end, Rakafei was so troubled that he directly deprived him of his military power and transferred him to a remote area to serve in a remote area. Marshal Lumbus also lost the opportunity to speak. Karakana finished the story. Sir, this is the second time that you have saved the villain's life. The villain has nothing to repay. If you don't dislike me, I will follow you for the rest of my life. Barry hugged his fists and knelt down on one knee in front of Jin Liwen again. Jin Liwen thought about it again and realized that he had no idea, so he said, it's just enough for 6 or 7 people for a month. Are you from Firanbamo? General Columbus. Jin Liwen looked at Barry and said. This is understandable. Such things are not uncommon in wars. Jin Liwen said. Haha, you can say that, Miss Elise, this is for my country and people, Columbus replied. After Kapeng returned home, he told his son about his rescue experience and the promise he made. His son regarded this as an ancestral precept and passed it down from generation to generation, hoping to repay Kanla one day. Sees life-saving grace. Time continues to pass, and the time for repayment has arrived. At that time, the Kunpeng Empire had just been established. Colombo's great-grandfather, Marshal Columbus, was also one of the founding fathers, and his status was second only to the Emperor Lakafei. Goodbye, Miss Kalakana, Columbus said politely. Kalakana on the side returned the documents to Jin Liwen and said, I hope that Sir can succeed. Although these conditions are harsh, I think it will definitely not be a problem for him. She paused and said, if nothing happens, I'll take my leave first. Farron didn't wake up until he returned to the hotel. It seemed that the battle just now had indeed consumed a lot of his energy. Are you from the Kunpeng Empire? Jin Liwen asked. So it's like this, you went to the Firanbamo kingdom to do business. Is it difficult to do business in Kunpeng? Or are you spies? Although he seemed to have nothing wrong with going to the enemy's country to do business, he was still half joking. Asked Barry if he was a spy, and walked over to sit on a chair in the living room, because he felt a little strange standing at the door. Indeed, our two families are family friends, Columbus said. I just think that both Sir and General Columbus are working towards the same goal, so why not get to know each other? Karakana said with a smile. Aren't you from the Filunbamo kingdom? Jin Liwen felt strange. Isn't this Barry a businessman from the Filunbamo kingdom? Sir, I know that you are going to help the Kunpeng Empire attack the kingdom of Farunbamo. I heard the news the day before yesterday, but I never confirmed it to you, Barry said slowly. Then, when he finally saw that Tirana city would be reached within 20 days, Columbus almost fainted. This was the most incomprehensible to him. In his opinion, it was simply impossible, unless he could fly, and also they have to fly very fast, so in this world he knows that the only people who can do that are flying dragons and powerful magicians. If they want to go to Tirana city, it doesn't take 20 days at all. The flying dragon can arrive in 2 days at most, and magicians the master can only use flying magic for 3 days. However, he had never seen the above two objects in Jin Liwen's team that could reach Tirana city within 20 days. If he was talking about things that could float, he thought those biochemical infantry could be considered one, but in his opinion, this was completely different from flying. General Columbus, Jin Liwen looked at Karakana. How is this going? Your Excellency decides when to leave. Columbus was most concerned about this issue. Anyway, he thought it was impossible to arrive within the specified time. Now he wanted to see what Jin Liwen could do. Jin Liwen helped Barry up this time. First of all, he felt embarrassed. He imagined Barry explaining his next whereabouts several times, but the words came to his lips many times and he didn't know how to say them out. Jin Liwen didn't say much. He entered the room and took out the cooperation document signed by Fiore and handed it to Columbus. Yes, Jin Liwen replied. I wonder how much food you need, Columbus asked. Barry smiled again and said, it is true that I have been doing business in the kingdom of Filunbamo for many years, but I am an authentic subject of His Majesty the Emperor of the Kunpeng Empire. Sir, are the conditions a bit harsh? Columbus returned the cooperation document to Jin Liwen. Haha, Miss Kalakana, long time no see. Barry's face changed back to a smile at this time and he greeted Kalakana. After sweeping away the remnants of the Tiger Society in the dock warehouse, Jin Liwen and the others headed back home, and the biochemical infantry he recruited also took advantage of the night to fly back to their hiding place outside the city. Haha, thank you for the compliment, Jin Liwen said with a smile. Sir, I didn't lie to you. I am indeed from the Kunpeng Empire, and I have really been doing business in the Filunbamo kingdom for many years, Columbus said to Jin Liwen with a smile. When Columbus said this, Jin Liwen said, then it seems that you have not fulfilled your promise. Sir, General Columbus is indeed not that kind of ungrateful person, I can guarantee that. Karakana defended Columbus. Jin Liwen really couldn't withstand the bombardment of praises from Barry, so he stretched out his hand to help Barry up from his knees and said, since we are friends, of course I will help you if you have something to do. Yes, not only me, but everyone in my caravan is also from the Kunpeng Empire, Barry replied. Then what do you think? In fact, I really hope you can follow me, but after all, this is treason. Jin Liwen heard Barry say that he already knew his movements, and without further explanation, he directly asked him if he was willing to follow him. Thank you for your understanding, sir. I am very relieved, Columbus said with a smile. Oh, are you familiar with each other? Jin Liwen was a little confused now. She was the one who exposed Columbus's identity just now, and now it's her who defended Columbus. Moreover, she had also heard that the scroll of space was stolen by Kunpeng. The Empire snatched it away, so the two gangs are in a hostile relationship. Why are they defending him now? It turned out that one of Columbus's ancestors was a mountain herb gatherer named Kapeng. One day, Kapeng went into the mountain to collect herbs and was suddenly attacked by Monty. On the way to escape, he accidentally fell off the cliff. When he thought he was doomed this time, an iron-winged man appeared to save him, and this iron-winged man was Kalakana's ancestor, the iron-winged leader Kanras. After being rescued, Columbus's ancestor, the herb gatherer Kapeng, was very grateful and vowed to help him if he was useful. However, the rescuer Kanlas didn't take it to heart and just ignored him. Kapeng led him out of the forest to solve the problem. Barry, are you a spy? The one who spoke was Elise, who had been silent. Jin Liwen thought for a moment and said, tomorrow we will attend the memorial ceremony for Goliath's succession, so let's set off the day after tomorrow. Then what good plan does the adult have? If the villain can be used, the villain is willing to help, Columbus said. As soon as Barry saw Jin Liwen come back, his bloated body immediately jumped up from the chair, and then he rolled and crawled in front of Jin Liwen. He kept praising Jin Liwen's meritorious deeds with tears streaming down his face, and the words he used in the process. The level of numbness made everyone present feel a cold wave coming. When Columbus heard that we were leaving the day after tomorrow, there was a trace of worry on his face. He thought he was leaving tomorrow, so he said, I'm afraid the time is too tight. Seeing Jin Liwen's troubled face, Barry asked, Sir, if you have any difficulties, you might as well say it directly. I see, then why did you reveal his identity just now? This is what Jin Liwen doesn't understand the most. Then I won't give it away. Jin Liwen stood up and said. Well, I don't know what else you need, sir. Let me prepare it for you. Columbus saw that Jin Liwen had always been confident. He estimated that he had already found a way, so he stopped worrying about this issue and turned to just ask them what they need. First marriage, then love. Mr. Mayor, please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan Nuan. Chapter 884. Second update arrived. He looked at Mr. Chi with a black line. Chu Xia was really defeated by him. At this time, he didn't forget to remind others that helping others was useless. Probably only this stubborn old man could do it, right? Who is being unreasonable? Tell me, who is being unreasonable? The middle-aged woman pointed her hand straight at Mr. Chi, and her lips trembled. When my brother was brought here yesterday, you were the one who treated him. You also said that the condition is very good and he will be discharged from the hospital in 2 or 3 days. As a result, when we came here today, you suddenly changed your story and said that my brother's condition was very dangerous. Even if he was cured, he would never be the same as a normal person. If there wasn't something wrong with your treatment, would it suddenly worsen? Do you think we don't understand if we're not doctors? Let me tell you, I have already inquired about it. You have been in prison before because you used feudal superstition to treat people. The organization took pity on you and gave you this job to support your family. Is this how you repay the organization? Let me tell you, you have committed murder, and we will definitely sue you. My poor son. When the old woman heard what the middle-aged woman said, she suddenly sat on the ground and started crying. The old man hurriedly knelt down to help her, while the middle-aged man stared at Wang Zhongliang angrily. Listen, do you understand? We are not looking for trouble for no reason. My brother-in-law was fine when he came here, but now he is half dead. As family members, we can't be indifferent while watching him become like that, right? At this time, the doctors and nurses on duty also gathered around and tried to persuade her, but the family of 4 couldn't listen to a word of it, and in the end they just sat on the floor together and couldn't get up. Chu Xia had also learned the whole story from Mr. Chi. What was sent was the son of the old couple, who was divorced from his daughter-in-law. I drank the pesticide because I couldn't think about it. Fortunately, I found it early and the problem was not serious after I washed my stomach. In order to ensure the therapeutic effect, Mr. Chi also gave him an injection to replenish his chi, and prescribed Chinese medicine for his family to take back. As a result, this afternoon, the patient was hungry, so he got up and looked for food from the cupboard. The pesticide residues had not yet been removed. As soon as he ate, the result was predictable. Unfortunately, he was the only one in the ward. By the time he felt something was wrong, he could no longer scream. Even if you press the emergency bell, you can't. If the little nurse on the ward rounds hadn't discovered it in time, she would have reported to the Lord of Hell by now. Mr. Chi was working the night shift today and was not in the hospital during the day. Under the circumstances, it was impossible to bring him over for surgery, so another doctor performed the surgery. When notifying family members, the operation has been completed, and the doctor in charge of the operation also told the family members about the patient's actual condition, and asked them to ask Mr. Chi if they had any questions they didn't understand. Then, when Mr. Chi came to the hospital, he was blocked in the office by this family. They didn't listen to anything Mr. Chi said. I figured out that the reason for the patient's recurrence was because Mr. Chi had given him the injection yesterday. Mr. Chi is not a good-tempered person. He has tried his best and explained everything, but some patients did not listen to him and made mistakes. Now it is all his fault. They do not listen to his explanation. How could he treat them? Have a good attitude? Chu Xia was also speechless about this. As a patient's family member, she could understand that she was worried about the patient's health, but she blamed others indiscriminately. It's their fault. And judging from their appearance, they are not people who can solve problems well at all. Mr. Chi, what are you going to do? After pondering for a while, Mr. Chi sighed. I understand their mood. However, I don't agree with their approach, and it is impossible to follow their wishes. Chu Xia had already understood what this family meant. They wanted the hospital to waive all treatment costs. If the hospital did not waive the cost, Mr. Chi would bear all the costs. To put it bluntly, This is what later generations call medical trouble, and it is still very unreasonable. They say they value their loved ones, but to put it bluntly, they still value money, or now they feel that after spending money, people cannot return to full health. It looked like it was such a loss, so I thought of using this method to get some more. If she could, she would never want to think so badly of others, but reality told her that there were many people in this world who were tortured by life and were left with so-called shrewdness. But the problem is, now that they don't go according to their wishes, he will always stay here and cause mischief, which not only affects Mr. Chi's work, but also the doctors, nurses and patients nearby. The dean and vice dean had already returned home from get-off work, but the director of the inpatient department was there, but it was useless to persuade him. The family's attitude was very clear, that is, all the money would be waived, and another 1,000 yuan would be compensated. This is really a big deal. In this era, the average worker's salary is only a few dozen yuan. 1,000 yuan is equivalent to 100,000 yuan in later generations. It is obviously the patient's own fault, but the hospital needs to compensate so much. It's okay to be so stiff all the time. The director of the inpatient department had no choice but to compromise with them and persuade them to go to the small conference room. Then he turned around and persuaded Dr. Chi, "Of course I understand that you feel aggrieved, but the patient's family members are so emotional excitement, if you don't say something, they won't give up. For the sake of the normal operation of the hospital, can you keep aggrieved a little bit more? You want me to apologize to them?" Mr. Chi looked at the director of the hospitalization department coldly. "You want me to bow to this evil force?" Yes, I know they are wrong, but there is nothing we can do about it. Don't worry, I will apply to the hospital for the compensation, so you don't have to bear it, but... No, but, if you really have to do this, I won't do it," Mr. Chi said as he started to clear away the things on the table. "Call the orthodontist and ask him to come on duty with me tonight. I will be responsible. He will take care of my few patients and new patients. Dr. Jiao is the doctor who performs surgeries on Mr. Chi's behalf during the day. Mr. Chi, don't be angry." The director of the hospitalization department smiled in a flattering manner. "Mr. Chi, I'm very sure that you did nothing wrong, but isn't this a special situation? In fact, I just sent someone to quietly investigate. None of this family has formal jobs now. The family conditions are indeed difficult. Otherwise, they wouldn't be so unreasonable. You said that if we meet someone with a formal job, we really don't have to worry. We only need to ask their work unit for help, and they will definitely go back obediently. What about something like this? He is simply shameless and doesn't care about anything. Otherwise, how could the daughter-in-law of an old couple divorce his son? It's because I can't stand the unreasonable behavior of this family. I also called the other side of the street, but they told me that there was really nothing they could do about the family. They couldn't let them starve to death, right? Let's just think of it as a waste of money and disaster, okay? According to your statement, this family must be forgiven for murder and arson? Just because they have a bad life, can they be unreasonable?" Mr. Chi snorted coldly. "Anyway, this kind of truth doesn't make sense here, or, you let their family pay the money and stop making trouble, otherwise, I'll leave." "Mr. Chi, you..." The director of the hospitalization department looked at the old man with a bitter look on his face. He really didn't know what to say. He didn't want to do it even if there was some way. Who knows whether the leaders can do it with this 1,000 yuan. Approval. He asked the leaders for instructions, but the two leaders of the hospital were not there. In order to calm down the incident, he had to bite the bullet. This was already a stressful situation, but the old man was acting petty again, which made him feel uncomfortable. What should he do? He can't afford to offend both sides now. If the family members make a big fuss, he will have to bear the responsibility. If Mr. Chi leaves, he will also have to bear the responsibility. This is neither left nor right. It is really going to embarrass him to death. Chu Xia and Wang Zhongliang sat silently aside, looking at the director of the inpatient department with some sympathy. It could be seen that this person was also an honest man, and his hair was almost pulled out. However, there is nothing Chu Xia can do about this kind of person. If she is not pregnant, she still dares to come forward to persuade her. With her current physical condition, it is too late to hide from such a person. How can she rush up? Minato. After all, the baby comes first. However, seeing Mr. Chi in trouble, she was also quite confused. It would be great if Zhou Mikang was here. The teacher's command is extremely powerful and his words are authoritative. He will definitely be able to scare the unreasonable family. Go back, don't stretch yourself here. After glancing at Chu Xia, Mr. Chi issued an eviction order. Now I can't even keep my job, so you don't have to worry anymore. Chu Xia's eyes lit up. How about you always work in the school? Mr. Chi said nothing. Chu Xia knew there was a way, and continued, you have good medical skills, but you don't want to listen to what I say. With your character, when you encounter someone who is unreasonable, it will really make you very angry. It would be different if you went to work in a school. What students admire the most is their teacher. Not only the students, but also the senior students especially admire you, saying that you are a true benchmark in the medical field. Mr. Yuan also said that if you can work in the school, it will definitely be a blessing for the students and a great thing for the medical community in our country. Moreover, she smiled sarcastically, I don't have to come and join in the fun. Comrade Xiaolin. Before Mr. Chi could speak, the director of the inpatient department said helplessly, you can't do this. Mr. Chi is the treasure of our hospital. If he leaves like this, the hospital will suffer huge losses. Is the hospital treasure being bullied like this? Chu Xia curled her lips and said realistically, given Qi Lao's actual situation, the real time would be to wait until Chinese medicine is recognized again in a few years for a consultation. Many people nowadays do not believe in traditional Chinese medicine and regard traditional Chinese medicine as feudal superstition. Thinking about this, Chu Xia felt that it was not a good thing that she made the old man break the precepts earlier. Otherwise, the old man would not have to face it today. That's all. To be continued. First marriage then love. Mr. Mayor, please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 885. 3 updates. The director of the hospitalization department was told by Chu Xia for a long time that he couldn't find a suitable reason. Yes, how could the hospital treasure be called a hospital treasure if he was bullied like this? As for him, he respects and admires Mr. Chi very much, but the current environment is like this. It is really difficult to convince others. Not to mention ordinary doctors and patients, most of the doctors in this hospital are dissatisfied with Mr. Chi. They feel that his traditional Chinese medicine skills are just a pretentious way to get money, and they feel that it is an insult to them that the hospital pays so much attention to Mr. Chi. Judging from Qi Lao's expression, he must have been moved by the proposal to teach. The dean and deputy dean attach great importance to Qi Lao. Even if they want to leave, they can't leave because of this matter. The more anxious he became, the less he could think of a solution. His face turned red and sweat dripped down his forehead. On a May day, he still had to wear a sweater at night, but he only wore a shirt and it was so hot. Mr. Chi had a pretty good impression of him. Seeing how cramped he was, he felt pity and waved his hand. Ren Peng, I won't embarrass you. I will be on duty tonight and I will be with the dean tomorrow. Explain. Just as he chuckled, Ren Peng's face fell again. Will it still be the same if he tells the dean tomorrow? The mistake was made while he was working, so he still has to bear the responsibility. I won't let you get involved, don't worry. Chi Lo Kong sighed, but it's impossible for you to ask me to apologize to that family. Just tell them that if you want to solve the problem, wait until the dean comes tomorrow. Say it again. If they still care about the patient's physical condition, they should stop making trouble here. If they continue to make trouble like this, the patient will really let them cause trouble. Okay, okay. Renpeng responded repeatedly. He quickly retreated. As long as the old man spoke, it would be easy, otherwise. He didn't know how to deal with that family at all. Mr. Chi. After hesitation, Chu Xia sat opposite him. If you believe me, you should go to school and stay for a few years. After this storm has passed, everyone will pay more attention to traditional Chinese medicine, and you will no longer have to suffer from this. I won't go. Mr. Chi put down the pen heavily. I wanted to leave and go to school just now, but after you said that, I didn't want to go. If I go like this, wouldn't I become a deserter? People don't recognize traditional Chinese medicine, so I want to show them that traditional Chinese medicine is no worse than Western medicine in some aspects, and it has even more advantages in patients' physical recovery. You don't have to bother trying to persuade me anymore. I promise you that I will accept you as my apprentice, but you must be mentally prepared. Being my apprentice is not that simple. I am not as easy to talk to as Lao Yuan. Even if you are pregnant and want to have a baby, I will not lower my requirements for you. Think it over for yourself, it's not too late to regret it now. No regrets, no regrets. Unexpectedly, there was a sudden turn of events. Chu Xia kept promising, I promise that I will not regret it. No matter what you ask for, I will not complain. Mr. Chi glanced at her lightly. Are you thinking that no matter how much you ask, you still have to worry about you being a pregnant woman, right? No, no, Chu Xia shook her head repeatedly. I know you will do what you say, and I have been with you during this time. Although I cannot say that I know your character very well, I still understand it roughly. And I believe it too. The tasks you give me are definitely within my capabilities, and they will definitely not make me so tired that I end up having a miscarriage. Even if something happens, I'm not afraid. You are always the best doctor. What do I have to be afraid of? Mr. Chi. Okay, what does it mean to be thick-skinned? He had seen it today, but it was not in vain that he looked at her differently at the beginning. Moreover, he originally planned to accept her as his disciple, but he never agreed, just to temper her temper. In his opinion, Chu Xia was very smart and talented, but she still lacked some patience. Originally, he planned to wear her down for a while, but after what happened today, he felt that her temper could be taught. As time goes by, the most important thing is to cultivate truly qualified successors. If my sister knew his decision, she would be very happy, right? If you have nothing to do on Sunday, you can come to my house as a guest. Mr. Chi looked at her calmly. I have a younger sister at home, and I want her to meet her as my apprentice. If she passes that level, you will be my real disciple. If she is dissatisfied with you, then I take back everything I just said. Okay, Chu Xia agreed happily. As far as Mr. Chi's character is concerned, his sister's character probably won't be too good. However, no matter how bad it is, it won't be worse than Mr. Chi's character, right? It turns out that she was really wrong. When Chu Xia arrived at Chi's house on Sunday, accompanied by Zhao Yulan, the mother and daughter were greeted by a particularly kind-looking old lady. Yingji went out to buy groceries. Let me wait for you at home. Old MRSG smiled and took the mother and daughter's hands. Come in, this little girl is so pretty. Hello, Aunt Chi. Hello, Aunt Chi. After figuring out the identity of the old lady, the couple quickly said hello. Hello, hello. The old lady smiled even happier, obviously very satisfied with the two names. The brother and sister live in a 3-bedroom house, which is extremely neat and clean, and the air is filled with a faint scent of sandalwood. After sitting down, The old lady smiled at Chuxia. Yinji said your name is Lin Chuxia, so I will call you Chuxia. As she spoke, she pushed the 2 cups of tea she had poured in front of the mother and daughter. You can call me whatever you think is right. Chuxia picked up the teacup and took a sip, nodding repeatedly. The honey lemon tea I made is delicious. Did you make it after submerging the lemons? Yes, the old lady smiled. As I get older, I like to drink tea that nourishes my body. You are pregnant with the baby now. Drinking this is good for your health. Auntie is so thoughtful. Mine is red date tea. Zhao Yulan put the cup in front of her daughter to dry and said, at my age, I need to replenish my blood. There is no harm in women eating more dates and drinking more date tea. Look at me, I am 62 years old this year. Although I am always old, I don't have age spots on my face. MRSG said as she moved her face closer to her mother's face. Minato, if you look closely, there are no spots, right? Yes, it's so delicate. Zhao Yulan couldn't help but touch her face. I'm 20 years younger than my aunt, but my skin doesn't feel as good as my aunt's. Old lady, I'm not shy to boast. Although my face is not as elastic as yours, when it comes to skin quality, you are really not as good as me. He stood up and went to the cabinet to get a small jar. Come on, this is a facial mask I made with red dates. I put a layer on my face at 8 o'clock every night and wash it off half an hour before going to bed. When I wake up the next day, my face is extra moist. I just made a jar and haven't used it yet. I took it when I left. Women, you can't be lazy. We don't show it to others. We do it to make myself feel comfortable. I don't want to see it myself because of my old face. Yes or no? Yes, yes, what you always said is. Zhao Yulan looked at her daughter for help. At first sight, MRSG was so approachable. She didn't know what to do. I'm sorry to accept it, and I'm embarrassed not to accept it. My mother gave it to me, so I will accept it. From now on, my mother will come to accompany me more often when she has nothing to do. Chuxia looked at old MRSG, old lady, my mother's pasta is very delicious. Do you want to eat it then? Whatever it is, you can let my mother do it. Let me explain first, I am not saying this to flatter you, I just think that if my mother takes your things, you have to ask her to give some back, right? Otherwise, my mother would definitely not be able to eat or sleep well. What she fears most is being in debt to others. This kid really has a clever mouth. The old lady shook her head in amusement and looked at Zhao Yulan, you're a good girl. You don't have any stage fright. No matter where you go, you stand out. This kid is thick-skinned. If you praise her, she will really believe it. What I'm telling you is the truth, not a compliment. Old MRSG looked at Chuxia with a smile. Yinji finally did something right. You kid, I knew I was in love with you right away. Auntie, you are so kind. Chuxia hugged the other party excitedly. To tell you the truth, I have been thinking about it. Mr. Chi said that if you are not satisfied with me, he will not accept me. A disciple. Ha ha ha. The old lady laughed happily. He was trying to scare you. How could I not be attracted to the person he likes? Grandma Chi, your house is really lively. I can hear laughter from afar. Following the words, a girl in her 20s walked in. When she saw her appearance clearly, Chuxia was stunned. It is Qian Yan, the granddaughter of Mr. Wan. The smile on Qian Yan's face froze when she saw Chuxia. After a moment, she asked with a stern face, why are you here? Yan Yan, do you know Chuxia? Old MRSG looked at the two of them in surprise and asked. Grandma, I told you before that she was the one who robbed my grandpa. Qian Yan frowned tightly. If it weren't for her, my mother and my grandpa wouldn't be in such trouble. Is there any misunderstanding between you two? Old MRSG looked at Qian Yan hesitantly. I chatted with this child for a while, and I feel that this child has a very good personality. He should not be what you said. Grandma Chi, do you believe me or her? Qian Yan pursed her lips. You have watched me grow up. Even though I am not particularly gentle, I never lie. You know this. But stop it, Grandma Chi. If you think she is not the kind of person I said, I will leave right now and never bother you again. Qian Yan said, really pretending to leave. To be continued. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan Nuan. Chapter 886. 1 Update. Yan Yan. Old MRSG grabbed Qian Yan anxiously. You kid, why are you turning your back like you are flipping through a book? Grandma treats you as her own granddaughter. Is it possible that in your eyes, all these years of friendship all fake? Grandma Chi. Qian Yan bit her lip, with a stubborn look on her face. If it were something else, I would definitely not be difficult for you, but she has taken away everything that originally belonged to me. It is impossible for me to coexist peacefully with her. Moreover, I can't accept that the person I care about is close to her, so this is a real multiple choice question. Choose her and I go. Choose me and she goes. Grandma, you decide who to let go. What if Grandma asks you to sit down and solve the problem? MRSG looked at her seriously. If this is really a multiple choice question, are you willing to give Grandma a chance to make a serious choice? Qian Yan frowned. Obviously she was very conflicted inside. Chu Xia sighed slightly. She remained silent because she wanted to follow the old lady's choice. If the other party kicked her out indiscriminately, then she had nothing to say. After all, she had been in love for many years and she couldn't compare with her. Moreover, Mr. Qi and MRSG have never married, and they should have always regarded Qian Yan as their granddaughter, so this feeling is even heavier. If you can't be Mr. Qi's apprentice because of this, it can only be said that the world reincarnates, and this is how our fate ends. But now the old lady Qi looked like she felt sorry for Qian Yan, but also didn't want to drive her away regardless of right or wrong for Qian Yan. So, it would be unkind for her not to say anything at this time. Qian Yan is the granddaughter of Mr. Wan. Although Wan Yuqiang's mother and daughter could not blame others for their estrangement from Mr. Wan, after all, Mr. Wan was now living with their family. Whenever possible, she still hopes that this knot will be loosened. Let the relationship between Wan's father and daughter improve. Qian Yan, I came to Grandma Chi's house on an invitation from Grandpa Chi. Now, I haven't met Grandpa Chi yet. If you force Grandma Chi to make a choice like this, she will be really embarrassed. As for your hatred towards me, you should know that it is completely unreasonable, because I never took away your grandfather. It's your lack of appreciation that broke the old man's heart. As long as you treat him as a true relative and don't think of him when you want to use him, and throw him aside after using him, your relationship will not reach this point. Moreover, as for the grievances between the elders, as a junior, should I do my best to reconcile them? Instead of tying this knot into a stronger one? Qian Yan interrupted her angrily. If you really think so, why don't you resolve the grudge between Grandpa and our family? You simply don't have enough background and deliberately let Grandpa be your backer. My fate with Grandpa Wan goes back many years. Grandpa Wan taught me and treated me well. I am very grateful and regard him as my grandfather from the bottom of my heart. But, with a sigh, Chu Xia continued, no matter how close we are to him, we can't really make up for the lack of peace in his heart. You should know what he wants. If you, mother and daughter, are willing to be sincerely nice to him, if you are truly close to him, then there will be no suspense about who you choose to live with. You only ask us to be nice to him, But what about him being nice to us? Qian Yan snorted coldly. When our family encountered difficulties, did he ever reach out to help us? If it is really like what you said, what he did was definitely not to watch our family become what it is today. Do you know how difficult it is for my mother to live now? My grandparents and my father didn't want to see my mother, and they didn't bother to pay attention to me as their granddaughter. To them, there was no need to waste the Qian family's current resources on my useless granddaughter. Why did my mother and I become useless and disliked? Isn't it because Grandpa doesn't care about family ties at all? Even if my mother had done something wrong to my grandfather before, wasn't it forced by the situation? Moreover, during that time, there were many people who made such choices. Why could my elders not mind, but my grandpa must care so much that he couldn't let go? Is it possible that our family must risk our lives for my grandpa in order to be truly filial? As a parent, if you think this way, are you still a parent? You mean, no matter how ruthless things their children do, parents must forgive them unconditionally, right? Chu Xia looked at her speechlessly. How can you say such selfish things so confidently? Grandpa Wan has never asked you to abandon everything and be filial to him. All he wants is the most basic emotions. You can ignore them when times are difficult. What about the past? When he can finally go home, I look forward to you being able to visit him and give him a little warmth of being a relative, but how do you do it? Indifferent, like a stranger. When you learned that he was being helped by an old friend and was finally useful, you showed up and made the request straightforwardly, regardless of whether it was appropriate or not. Grandpa Wan has said many times that if your request will not harm the interests of others, he will do his best to help. Even if his life is bet, he will do it without hesitation. But what about the reality? You want him to break his promise. How can such a kind and upright old man accept such an unreasonable request? Who would be willing to cut off contact with their loved ones if they were not helpless? In fact, I have been holding these words in my heart for a long time. Every time during the holidays, Grandpa Wan is with us and looks very happy, but whenever he carries someone on his back, he is always so lonely. If he really doesn't care about you, will he have two different expressions? To be honest, my parents and I treat Grandpa Wan as sincerely as if we were our own grandfather. Why is he still so disappointed? He said that he was deeply hurt by you, that he had given up, and that he had no fate with his children in this life. He admitted it, but what about his heart? Do you think he really doesn't want you to come back to him? If it's like what you said, why did he refuse my mother's request so resolutely? Qian Yan frowned tightly. My mother's previous request was a bit unreasonable, but this time recently, she just wanted me to. My grandfather helped keep my father's position and ensured that the Qian family would never take sides again. But my grandpa rejected my mother's request without thinking. Do you know how sad my mother was? She really wanted to get along well with my grandpa this time, but unfortunately, Grandpa didn't give her this chance at all. Or, what you heard was just what my grandpa wanted to say, and what you saw was just your speculation. Do you really know what my grandpa's truest thoughts are? Also, you must admit that when you live with my grandpa, you just want to take advantage of him. Otherwise, why would there be so many lonely old men and women who chose my grandpa? Yes, there are many lonely old men and women. If one day I have that ability, I will definitely try my best to help them. However, that kind of help is completely different from living with Grandpa Wan. Concept. Everything has cause and effect. As I said, the relationship between me and Grandpa Wan was when he was sent to our village. Later, we met by chance. By chance, I recognized Grandpa Wan as my godfather, and then we moved forward step by step. Recently, Jin and Er are really living together. You said that I wanted to gain the glory of Grandpa Wan, but I never had this intention from the beginning. It just happened that someone wanted to target me, and Grandpa Wan helped to resolve it. This goes back to the issue I told you before. Grandpa Juan helped me because I was the victim and innocent. If it were you and your daughter who encountered such a thing, I think Grandpa Juan would have fought hard. Destined to seek justice for you. Having said so much, you still have to admit one thing. When you are with my grandpa, you are taking advantage of him. Of course I admit this. Chusia looked at her seriously. I am also very grateful to Grandpa Juan for appearing at the most appropriate time, helping me and saving me. Then you still don't admit that you robbed my grandpa. Well, the question has come back again. Chusia looked at Jian Yan with a blank look. She really didn't know what to say. What she was most afraid of was dealing with such an unreasonable master who only acted according to his own ideas. In her concept, others must be good to her unconditionally. She can betray, but others must also forgive. If the slightest thing fails to satisfy her, then she is sorry. Chusia secretly glanced at old MRSG with some confusion. With a character like Jian Yan, how could the old lady love her to the core as if she were her own granddaughter? After listening to this for a long time, MRSG also sorted things out and talked about the matter. In the past, she had only heard the words of the Jian family's mother and daughter, so it was inevitable that she would have some misunderstandings about Mr. Wan. However, the argument between the two girls just now made her understand the truth of the matter. Fundamentally speaking, it must be the Jian mother and daughter who were wrong. However, to her, it was the Jian mother and daughter who really had feelings. No matter how they treat Mr. Wan, their interactions with her over the years have been good. Moreover, in the entire compound, only the mother and daughter of the Jian family were willing to interact with their brothers and sisters, otherwise, she would not be so close to Jian Ying. Therefore, at this moment, she was a little embarrassed about how to resolve this matter. She could not accept that she had no contact with Jian Yan. From the bottom of her heart, she really regarded Jian Yan as her granddaughter. The older a person gets, the more they like their children and grandchildren. Like her and her brother, who are not married and have no children, they inevitably place their emotions on Jian Ying, who has been close to them since childhood. To be honest, she used to know that this child was sometimes unreasonable, but she always felt that she was still young. When she got older and became more sensible, she wouldn't be like this anymore. Relatively speaking, she had less contact with Wan Yuqian, otherwise she probably wouldn't think this way. Now after hearing what Wan Yuqian did, she became deeply worried about Jian Ying's future. To be continued. Read the latest chapter of First Marriage and Love to Changfeng Literature. First Marriage Then Love, Mr. Mayor Please Be Kind. Author, Zhao Nuan Nuan. Chapter 887. Second update. When Jian Yan asked MRSG to make a choice again, MRSG sighed heavily and looked at Jian Yan seriously. Yan Yan, Grandma just wants to ask you something. Do you really mean it from the heart? Do you think that there is nothing wrong with you and your mother, but it is all your grandpa's fault? After hesitating, Jian Yan shook her head. No, I admit that my mother and I made mistakes, but I also feel that my grandpa is more responsible. Back then, my mother had no choice but to make that choice. Her younger brother was taken away by her grandmother after he was born. She told her mother clearly that if her mother was a slight drag on the Jian family, she would leave the Jian family immediately and never see her younger brother again in her life. As a mother, my mother can only make that choice. Moreover, my mother also told Grandpa the truth. Why can't Grandpa just be accommodating and forgive my mother? Now my brother is 19 years old, and my mother has only seen him 3 times. Many people don't even know that my mother has a son. How sad my mother is. Grandpa should be able to think of it. Why doesn't he think about his mother at all? What the grandparents did was a bit excessive, but they just wanted to make the descendants of the Jian family live a better life. Rationally speaking, there was nothing wrong with what they did. I used to be jealous of my younger brother. He is also a child of the Qian family. He is a young master in front of my grandparents, but I can only be a maid in front of my grandparents. Even where my brother lives, I can only go there during the holidays. My mother is even worse off than I am. Before her grandfather was rehabilitated, she had never had the opportunity to go to the old house to celebrate the new year. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been unable to see my brother for so many years. These passed. My grandpa knows this. He is also a father and should be able to understand my mother's mood. As long as he helps my mother's situation will not be like this. Grandma Chi, I won't hide it from you. I used to think it was good for my brother not to live with us. Otherwise, my mother would definitely not be able to pamper me so much. But now I don't think so. My mother's life is too hard. To her, every child is her own flesh and blood. When I quarrel with her, I will blame her for being partial, but when I think about it later, I regret it terribly. I am by my mother's side every day, and of course she trusts me, but for my younger brother, she has never really fulfilled her responsibilities as a mother. Naturally, she is always obsessed with her. No one in the family understands her yet. Dad was pretty good to me before. But since my grandfather regained his freedom, he has become more and more indifferent to me. Sometimes I am particularly scared. We are afraid that one day our mother and daughter will be abandoned by the Qian family. If Grandpa doesn't care about us then my mother and I. She bit her lip hard. Then my mother and I really don't know how to live anymore. When I was chatting with Wan Lao before early summer, Wan Lao said that Wan Yuqiang only had one daughter. This is also the reason why Wan Yuqiang is not taken seriously in the Qian family. She believes that Mr. Wan will not lie, and now Qian Yan is so sure that Mr. Wan knows, which means that Wan Yuqiang is the one who lied. She didn't understand why Wan Yuqiang would tell such lies to her daughter. Old MRSG didn't expect that there would be so much more to do about the Qian family. She sighed, hugged Qian Yan, and didn't know what to say. If it was really like what Qian Yan said, it could only mean that Qian Yan was very interested in her. All Mr. Wan's hatred stems from her love for Wan Yuqiang. A daughter who loves her mother deeply, she can't bear to say anything about her, even if her thoughts are a bit extreme. She can't bear to say anything bad about her, and even make her feel a little distressed. For a time, the room fell into a long silence. After saying this, Qian Yan's mood was a little agitated. She had never told anyone about these things, and she wouldn't have spoken out if she hadn't been forced to do so today. In any case, this is considered a family scandal for her, and family scandals cannot be made public. However, in order to regain her own tone, she can only do this. Otherwise, old MRSG would definitely not support her. Growing up, she and her mother were despised by many people, and only Grandpa Chi and Grandma Chi were kind to them. Although the situation of Grandpa Chi and Grandma Chi was not good at that time, people in bad situations would despise their mother and daughter, so the mother and daughter always remembered this affection. Every time during the holidays, her mother would ask her to bring some delicious food to the old man and old lady, and also told her to spend more time with the old man and old lady when she had nothing to do. After coming here more often, she fell in love with this pair of brothers and sisters from the bottom of her heart, because they truly loved her, and they treated her as if they were their own. She only felt this feeling from her mother, and she cherished the two additions later. When she saw Lin Chuxia appear today, she felt inexplicably afraid. Grandpa has already been taken away by Lin Chuxia. If Grandma Chi and Grandpa Chi are taken away by her again, she will vomit to death. Although she also knew that she could not completely blame Lin Chuxia, in order to keep everything that belonged to her, she could only blame the other party for all the responsibilities. He even revealed private secrets that were never revealed to outsiders. Qian Yan, what would you say if I told you that your mother never told Grandpa Wan about your brother? After hesitating for a while, Chu Xia finally told the truth. For the sake of Grandpa Wan, she must restore the truth. Impossible. Without even thinking about it, Qian Yan shook her head and denied, "My mother never lied to me. She said she told Grandpa, so she must have told Grandpa. You can't use this method to provoke us mother and daughter. If I was deliberately trying to sow discord between you mother and daughter, I would have told the truth just now, but I hesitated because I was worried about affecting the relationship between you mother and daughter. However, after careful consideration, I think I should tell you the truth, otherwise, you and your mother's attitude towards Grandpa Wan may not change for a long time. The first thing I do is of course for the sake of Grandpa Wan, but at the same time, it is also for the sake of you mother and daughter." After a pause, Chu Xia said, "If one day you want to make up for what you can't make up for, you will definitely regret it." MRSG also frowned. She didn't know Mr. Wan very well, so she couldn't tell whether what Chu Xia said was true or false. She unconsciously turned her attention to Qian Yan. Qian Yan was also very conflicted. She had met Chu Xia several times, but had never dealt with her head-on. Normally, she should have faith in her mother, but inexplicably, she found Lin Chuxia's statement credible. But why did mom lie to her? This was something she couldn't understand. "I suggest you go home and have a good talk with your mother." Chu Xia looked at her seriously. "You have to believe that I am definitely not doing this for my own selfish reasons. You said that I don't have enough background to ask Grandpa Wan to help me, but if you think about it carefully, do I need to do this now? Don't say that my husband's family doesn't care about my family background at all. Even if they do, the Lin family in Beijing is not that bad, right? Although my father returned to the family after being separated for many years, you only need to ask around to know how the Lin family in Beijing treats us. If we want them to be our backers, they are definitely more than enough. I say this because you must classify me among the utilitarian people. In order to give you a sense of belonging, I will explain it according to what you said. I believe this will make you see the essence of things better. Be clearer, right? Grandma Qi, if you have to choose between me and her, who would you choose?" Qian Yan did not answer Chu Xia's question, and was entangled in MRSG's choice. "Hey!" Old MRSG sighed helplessly, "You kid, you are really stubborn. Since you must have an answer, let me tell you, if you have to choose, of course Grandma will choose you." "Really?" Qian Yan's eyes lit up. "Grandma, you're not trying to make me happy, are you?" "Of course not. Grandma watched you grow up, so how could she be willing to throw you away?" Old MRSG sighed again. "I like Chu Xia because she is your Grandpa Qi's apprentice, and I like you because of our relationship. Understood?" "I understand." Qian Yan breathed a sigh of relief and smiled sheepishly. "I won't force you to make unnecessary choices now." She turned to look at Chu Xia. "I will figure this out. If you lied to me, I will definitely go to you to settle the score. Even with the strength of our family, I can't do anything to you, but I will do my best to make your life uncomfortable." Chu Xia nodded. "Okay, if I really lied to you, you can do whatever you want, but the premise is that you must clearly distinguish what is true and what is false." After Qian Yan left, Zhao Yulan, who had been silent all this time, sighed and looked at old MRSG apologetically. "Auntie, I'm really sorry for making this difficult for you." "Don't say that, who would have thought of such a coincidence?" Old MRSG shook her head helplessly. "Every family has its own scriptures that are difficult to recite. However, I am here to pray for Xiao Yan and her daughter. Personal feelings, no matter how many mistakes they make, you should be considerate. We have been neighbors with their family for several years. To be honest, Xiao Yan's father is really not good to her mother. There are things that Xiao Yan's mother does not do well and she is really forced to do so. If she doesn't listen, she will only get beaten. A woman with a child, what do you think she can do? If they were really divorced, Wouldn't life be even more miserable? Don't worry, Auntie, how can we hold grudges about this matter? We and I sincerely hope that Uncle Juan's family will be reunited. To be honest, no matter how close Uncle Juan is to us, there is still a layer between us. At other times, the feelings may not be so deep, but when it comes to holidays, the old man is smiling. But if you look closely, you can find that it is just a superficial thing. In my heart, I don't know why I am suffering. It's partial. Everyone can only pretend to be confused. What a feeling. Shaking her head, Zhao Yulan said no more. To be continued. Read the latest chapter of First Marriage and Love to Changfeng Literature.